Baldur's Gate 3 has now won pretty much every award under the sun, and there is no shortage of reviews heralding the game's achievements. But my favorite reviewer, Skill Up, said he wouldn't be among that crowd. So, I am going to try my hand at a spoiler-free review, but I refuse to be timely about it. Bear with me. Time for a metaphor. To shamelessly borrow from a past shill-up video, today's gamers epitomize the frog being slowly cooked with broken releases, overly monetized FOMO-driven systems, and ever-creeping financial greed turning up the heat over time. Horse armor is a meme that we can see in hindsight was the beginning of the end, but I can name several games with monetization far more egregious. Fallout 76, Destiny 2, Diablo Immortal, Halo Infinite, Overwatch 2, and sadly many more are recent examples of games that then ask you to pay again and again for features once considered the bare minimum. The problem is that we are all too used to it. We think we are in a lovely frog hot tub and not a cooking pot designed to feed shareholders the biggest portion above all else. The most basic defense is that cosmetics are fine to pay extra for since they don't affect gameplay. But not all cosmetics are created nor priced equal, and not all games even pass that basic test. Looking at you, Ubisoft. Prices are going up and inflation is getting worse, but what do we do about it as individual consumers? While I personally boycott microtransactions in most games, I am not proud of the money I've poured into League of Legends over the years. However, I believe that celebrating what we want is more effective than trying to convince offending brands to improve. So why am I ranting about capitalism running gaming in a Baldur's Gate 3 review? I believe that Baldur's Gate 3 is the example we need for the frogs to jump out of the water and see what a full-price, big-budget, narrative-led single-player game can be. I hope Baldur's Gate 3 is the ice bath after a sauna for the games industry, both makers and consumers. When companies are blaming success for layoffs and more live service go abandoned than ever before, Concord set a record. Baldur's Gate 3 is the best possible middle finger that warms my spiteful gamer heart. Make a good game for a fair price without exploiting your staff and you can still make money. Wild. This level of success is possible, profitable, and worth celebrating. Alana Pierce has expressed, though I'm paraphrasing here, that she wants gamers to personally invest in companies that do things they like and sell shares when they do something they don't. Not everyone has the resources for hobby investing, but we can pay full price for games that deserve it and reject the greedy practices running this art form. Let's get performance and technical comments out of the way. I played Baldur's Gate 3 on PC, at max settings, 1440p with a 4080 GPU and Ryzen 3900X CPU for reference. I didn't run a frame counter as I never experienced major instability aside from a now fixed bug in a past patch. Larian provided long-term support for the game with patches well into 2024. Along with community mod support and free quality of life updates. Baldur's Gate 3 started in a technical state that few other big budget games launch with and only got better. It's a refreshing sight. Before we get into the game proper, let me say I don't play D&D, knew nothing of the Baldur's Gate world, and the character creator threw plenty at me that I didn't understand right away. General games literacy helped me figure out which way I wanted to start, but I had no greater appreciation of what each class could turn into. My first character was a female drow monk. Character visual appearance and customization options were fine with enough variety for me. Not as good as Korean MMOs, better than FF14. The stats you pick for your character at the start certainly matter, but you have to go out of your way to make something anywhere near a bad build. Later on, you can flex the systems to create some very powerful builds with multi-classing. Some class builds unlock even more options with specific items. There is something for everyone, and every wild combination will likely see you through. You can easily change classes for yourself or any companion, making wacky ideas fun to test out and errors easy to correct if you don't care for a chosen path. While your build can affect non-combat checks or rolls, with some conversations letting you skip entire fights, your class choices dictate your offensive options and role in battle. Now about that combat. I used to associate turn-based combat with slow pacing and repetitive spamming, but many games have proven me wrong, and Baldur's Gate 3 is now on that list. There is remarkable creativity in combat. Of course, your barbarian can simply hit things really hard, but they can also throw enemies into each other. Environmental reactions make traps deadly for both allies and enemies. Fireball takes care of many things, but sometimes all you need is a small spark on spilled oil. Summon small armies of creatures to fight with you. Owlbear from the top rope is a viable strategy. Barrelmancy will see you through most bosses. Go for it. I dare you to find new ways to eliminate your enemies. It is always worth exploring different ways to beat fights or clutch a win when things look bad. Granted, not everything works. Sometimes an idea would make sense, but no, there are limits, But the game systems allow for and encourage far more than most games of this scale, and there is so much to do. Encouraged creativity extends through every aspect of the game, not just combat. A door you can't lockpick could be smashed in if you're strong enough, or a breakable wall might reveal another way in. Misty Step lets you instantly reposition for more shenanigans. Spells can also help you through dialogue and stat checks. People are easier to convince if they are charmed or very scared of you, and early conversational buffs from Shadowheart helped me a lot. Items scale up as you go, and builds come together with appropriate timely jumps in power, though pre-level 5 was risky sometimes. Thankfully, the game is split into 3 acts that break up the massive quest log and impressive playable areas. I do wish the point of no return between Act 1 and 2 was a bit clearer, as you can explore more areas than the game suggests before being locked into Act 2. I will also add there is an optional special final act fight that the game overwarns you to the point that it made me question if it would be a scripted loss when it's actually one of the best bosses in the game. The heavy tone of heavy consequences on a tight deadline doesn't always follow through. You can long rest as much as you want, you won't die. You and your party are on an urgent life or death mission, but you can 100% wait to trigger most fights until you are ready with no ill effects. The game economy is funny. If you are a loot hoarder like me, you may start out a bit poor, but will soon have more gold than you know what to do with. If you want to really own the world, a few tricky spells and merchant exploits will let you print gold at will. Nothing is ever really out of reach, just find the right method. The game systems work well and offer a font of ways to accomplish a set task, but speaking of the tasks at hand, Baldur's Gate 3 is primarily, in my opinion, about the story and the journey the player decides to take. The game gives you a general direction and lets you find the path that makes sense for you. I can understand why some people are intimidated by the sheer amount to do and selection of quests that don't tell you the direct path forward, but stumbling upon something related to an encounter from over 20 hours ago ensured I explored 100% of every map. The world is painted in hidden details. This review will stay spoiler-free, but the teams at Larian deserve every ounce of praise for bringing such diverse stories to life. To start with, I haven't felt this level of party camaraderie since the Mass Effect trilogy. Offhand party chatter has the jokes you'd expect, but there are heartfelt and heavier moments I used to only associate with BioWare-esque writing. However, when every conversation has potential stakes and you can only revive playable characters, sometimes dice rolls or late-night decision-making takes you down a less-than-ideal path. Save scumming is an optional art, but you can also have a lot of fun just seeing where the rolls take you. I personally lost a cumulative 300 hours having fun, and even the 100% achievement isn't too bad. Honor mode and keeping some NPCs alive might be tricky, but are very attainable for most players willing to put in the time. Thankfully, even if you need multiple runs for achievement, you can spice up each playthrough with a different character, role, intention, and approach. Now that every game tries to slap a role-playing label on the digital box, Baldur's Gate 3 makes good on that promise. Will you befriend everyone or murder your way to victory? Help your friends reach their full potential or add some more trauma for fun? Your actions and choices will send you down different paths with lasting outcomes. For the most part, nothing is a bluff, and it's up to you to read the situation and make a call, then see what happens. The Dark Urge Origin could have been a DLC expansion since it's recommended after a more standard first playthrough, but it acts as a fantastic way to play again while seeing an entirely different side of now familiar events. Yes, I enjoyed Route B in Nier Automata, why do you ask? To wrap things up, let me indulge a small soapbox moment and get a bit personal. I don't expect most games to resonate with my personal deeper experiences, maybe one per year, but not always. I knew Baldur's Gate 3 would be a standout for the year when a camp member says, "I'm not used to asking for help and actually receiving help." That hit home for me, and moments in my actual life. It was one moment of many that I enjoyed, because it was something I expect so few games to do with tact. I expected the gameplay to be good and knew Larian had a strong fanbase for a reason, but I didn't expect this level of writing. In an era of what feels like PG-13 RPGs, I know I look back on games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age Origins with rose-tinted glasses, but the character writing in Baldur's Gate 3 beats that even with my nostalgia buff. There is plenty of fantasy escapism, but sometimes I also enjoy being smacked in the face by my feelings, or honestly surprised by choices the devs made. Small subversions are everywhere, but never the main focus. Don't get me wrong, I love some of the more traditionally or stereotypically aligned characters in games. Ari is hot, so is Set. However, I love seeing the representation of different choices that appeal to and represent different people and experiences. Each prominent character is well fleshed out and different in their own way, but they also interact and react based on what you chose to do and who else is involved. Baldur's Gate 3 isn't a true life sim, but it's not a dating/friend group sim sometimes, and I love that for the same reason I love Fairy Tail. The warm feeling and lasting adventures, with good company. Sad writer rant over. In a gaming era where I was disappointed by Starfield and lost faith in BioWare years ago, Baldur's Gate 3 gives me hope that record-breaking quality games aren't going anywhere, just coming from different sources and telling different stories. I hope Larian continues this impressive form to show the industry how it's done. Oh, if anyone is still watching this, first off, why and how, but also thank you. I like the idea of content creation, but have no idea if anyone would listen to what I have to say. Who knows what is next? Sub if you want, I'm getting pizza.